Yeah, look, I mean, for me, I hope, why I hope, I hope because I'm a person. I mean, I think God creates all of us with a sense of hope. I think that's part of what it means to be created in the image of God. I don't hope because I'm a Christian, although that does help me, but I know atheists who hope. I know folks that are in different religions that hope. So I think hope is is part of what it means to be human. It's interesting, Paul says, what is it, 1 Corinthians 13, these three things remain, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of love is love. But hope remains, faith remains, love remains. And so it seems to me that those three things that remain are essential parts of what it means to be a person. And so whether we attribute that to God's creation of us or not, it's still there. And so part of being human for me is, I think for everybody, is that we hope. It may be for a future that's 5 years down the road. It may be for the next minute. It may be for the next hour or the moment just to get through. But we all have this sense in us that we're looking forward. I think Carl Menninger called it a life instinct. So that it's part of what it means just to live in this life. And I think I hope too because I struggle as a person. I think I hope because I know what it is to doubt and question and struggle, and I know what it is to live in darkness and to long for just a pinhole of light to come through the cell that I find myself in. I know what it is to have this sense of oppression in me that just seems to be closing in on me, and I'm looking for a window so I can see out there somewhere. So to me, hope is a part of just the struggle of being human. In fact, I don't know that without the struggle, if we really learn to be hope-filled. I think the struggle, the challenge of life is something that helps us to learn that in some weird way. And I hope because, as I've said, of the people around me. I hope because I have people around me that live in front of me in such a way that tell me I'm not alone. And if I know that, I can be okay. But I think the promise is, that God's promise is for a new day, a new future, that God is in this. And so as a Christian, I think that also gives me a foundation for hope. And I had this experience one time where I was visiting this guy in the hospital, and he had Lou Gehrig's disease. And Lou Gehrig's disease is just, it's this awful, it just shuts down your body. Your mind is totally awake, but your brain is not communicating with your muscles, and you can't do anything. And it's gradually worse. And by the time I saw this guy, he was in a hospital bed and he was hooked up to a breathing machine. All he could move were his eyelids. And so first time I met him, I walked into the hospital room and he was emaciated, almost to a skeleton. His eyes were bugged out. And I walked in, he was on a list that I had. I walked in and saw him, and I was shocked at what I saw. And I stood there, it seemed like a long time, but it probably wasn't very long. And I turned around, didn't say anything, and I walked out the door and went back to my car. There was something in that experience that just sucked the hope out of me. And I went back to my office and put my head down on the desk and just thought, what is this, And I had that question, a God of goodness, a God of hope, how does this happen, And it wasn't intellectual for me at that point. And I can talk about intellectually all that, but it was emotional, it was spiritual, it was something deep in my soul. And but somewhere in that, as my head was down, I felt deep within me like the Spirit of God was saying, you need to go back. And I mean, I did. So I went back, went down the hallway to the hospital room, opened the door, and I went to his bedside, and I told him that I needed to apologize to him for what I did. And he blinked twice like that. And I learned later that that meant yes. That's how he communicated. 1 blink for no, 2 for yes. And so over the next few months, we developed this relationship where I go back and see him, and after I don't remember how long we were in this relationship before I asked him this question. I said, how do you deal with this? You know, I mean, you're laying here and everything is gone except your mind. You're trapped in this. You know, how do you deal with this? We had learned to communicate with one of those letter boards, you know, so with a pen I'd point to a letter and he'd blink yes when I got to the right letter, no if I didn't, and then I'd write down the letter that he said yes to. And so I'll never forget this. He said, he was blinking, I pointed to an A, he blinked twice, and I kept scrolling through these alphabet. I got to an L and he blinked twice. And then another L, he blinked twice, and we kept going. Through this sentence he was trying to speak, and he kept blinking, and finally it said, what he was saying was, all will be made new. All will be made new. I mean, it like hit the love battle, the rock anthem right there. I mean, yeah, it was just. And I thought at that point, where the first time I met him, my hope felt sucked out. By the time I had this conversation, my hope was filled. Because in him, he knew. I mean, it was what the book says, right? In Revelation, behold, I make all things new. And somehow he knew that all this would be made new at some point. And that was his hope. That was his hope. And I think somehow he lived to help people understand that. He definitely helped me understand that there is more to this than meets the eye, and that God is present, and God is in this, whatever, all this ALS and this pain and this suffering that he's in, God is still there, and communicating to him, it's going to be made new. It's going to be made new. Yeah. What cultivates hope in us? The 1 Corinthians 13 passage, all those three things, faith, hope, and love, are relational. If we can somehow get past faith being about what we believe and really talk about it more, I think, in the biblical sense of that faith is about who we trust, then it's relational. We understand love is relational. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But if we can somehow, take hope out of the abstract, and say, well, hope is relational, then that means that hope is cultivated, encouraged in us through our connections and our willingness to connect to people at a level that means something. Let people see us and we can see them, and that happens in community. Not just people getting together, but people getting together in a meaningful way, So to me, that's a big point. It's probably not the only way, but it's one of the main ways I think that we find hope in our lives through the relationships. I know a lot of people, who struggle. You probably do too, with this profound sense of depression, and it pulls them into isolation. And then as you move into isolation, away from people, you find that your ability to look ahead, look forward, it just gets diminished. It gets sucked out of you.
You hear about like prisoners who are isolated, that how they survive is like almost creating that community in their head that they've had from relationship.
Yeah.
They don't let go of that connection.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I know that shame in us, which I think shame is a big driver for a lot of us, maybe for all of us, but that shame isolates us too. We want to go into hiding, And so we think that the answer to shame is that we'll just stay away from people. But I think what we really learn, one of the things that recovery gives us, AA, is a huge gift to us, is that it tells us that other people are not the problem, but that other people are the solution to our shame. And somehow in that, hope begins to come into us. And when we see those relationships and we're able to share who we really are, what I've done after a fearless searching moral inventory, and we admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, and somebody in the flesh is there. And I think that is, I think that's the presence of God, that is there looking across in the flesh. Hope has to have skin on it. Just like faith has to have skin on it, love has to have skin on it. It's relational. I don't hope alone. I hope in community. And so for me, that's the community that I'm a part of is a huge gift to me for my hope. And so yeah.